Pardon me, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, I beg your pardon.
Back in 1998, while most games were busy turning players into unstoppable action heroes with giant guns and explosions every 5 seconds, one game asked a completely different question. What if being weak actually made the game better? That game was Thief, the Dark Project, and honestly, it changed stealth games forever. Before Thief, stealth usually meant crouching awkwardly behind a box for 10 seconds before shooting everyone anyway. But Thief made stealth the entire experience. You weren't a soldier. You weren't some chosen hero. You were Garrett, a sarcastic master thief who avoided fights because fighting usually meant dying. And that single design choice completely changed how players approached games. Your goal wasn't just surviving either, it was stealing. Sneaking through heavily guarded mansions, robbing nobles blind, and escaping without anyone even realizing you were there. Even today, over 2 decades later, modern stealth games still borrow ideas from Thief. Games like Dishonored, Splinter Cell, Hitman, and even parts of BioShock owe something to this game. But what makes Thief so special isn't just the gameplay, it's the atmosphere, the sound, the tension, the feeling that every dark hallway could either make you rich or get you killed instantly. And somehow, despite its old graphics, it still creates more fear and immersion than many modern games today. So let's break down exactly why Thief: The Dark Project became one of the most influential stealth games ever made. Mechanics. The first thing that made Thief revolutionary was how it handled stealth mechanics. Nowadays, stealth systems are everywhere, but back then, this was groundbreaking. Instead of focusing on combat, the game punished you for fighting directly. Garrett wasn't a powerhouse. Guards could destroy you in seconds if you got careless. So the game teaches you something most games never do. Avoid conflict. That changes everything. Instead of running into rooms aggressively, you start studying patrol routes, listening to footsteps, watching light sources, and planning escape paths. The shadows become your best friend. One of the coolest mechanics was the visibility gem at the bottom of the screen. It showed how hidden you were depending on the lighting around you. Stand in darkness, and you were nearly invisible. Walk into torchlight, and suddenly every guard could spot you. Simple mechanic, massive impact. Then there's the sound system, which was honestly insane for 1998. Different floor materials created different noise levels. Walking on marble floors was loud. Carpets were quieter. Metal surfaces were basically alarm systems for guards. You couldn't just sprint everywhere, you had to move carefully. Sometimes players would literally stop and wait for thunder during rainstorms because the loud sound masked their footsteps. That level of immersion was almost unheard of back then. And the tools Garrett had were incredibly creative too. Water arrows could extinguish torches to create darkness. Rope arrows let you climb wooden surfaces and access hidden areas. Moss arrows literally created soft surfaces on noisy floors so you could walk silently. That's such a genius mechanic because it encourages creativity instead of brute force. The game never forced one solution. It gave players systems and let them experiment. And honestly, that philosophy became the foundation for immersive sims later on. Sound/atmosphere. This is where Thief becomes legendary. Because the atmosphere in this game is absolutely unreal. Even now, the sound design alone carries half the experience. Sometimes you just stop moving completely and listen. Distant footsteps echoing through hallways. Guards talking somewhere nearby.
But I was thinking we should watch the outside.
That's stupid. People don't worry about there on the inside.
No, then you catch them before they get inside, you taffer.
Oh!
Metal armor clanking in another room. Most horror games today scream at you with loud music and jump scares every 10 seconds. Thief does the opposite. Silence becomes terrifying. You'll spend minutes hearing nothing except distant footsteps echoing through stone hallways. Maybe a guard muttering to himself. Maybe metal armor clanking somewhere far away. And your brain starts imagining threats before you even see them. That's what makes the game scary. The audio positioning was incredibly advanced too. You could genuinely track enemies just by listening. Guards upstairs sounded different from guards below you. Doors opening in another room instantly created panic. And then there are the famous guard voice lines. Some of them are unintentionally hilarious. The guards constantly complain about random nonsense, argue with each other, or say absurd things in overly dramatic voices. You'll hear lines like, "Must have been rats," right after accidentally knocking over half the room. Or guards casually discussing food while you're hiding 2 feet away in complete panic.
You'll be full of holes! Ooh, I think a baby bird pecked me.
The voice acting somehow makes the world feel alive despite how old the game is. But then Thief flips the mood entirely. Especially in missions like the Sword or Return to the Cathedral. Suddenly the game stops feeling like a stealth game and starts feeling like psychological horror. The environments become surreal. Twisted architecture, haunted cathedrals, undead enemies whispering in darkness, creepy ambient sounds that make you afraid to move. And the crazy thing is that these moments work because the game spends so much time building tension naturally. It doesn't rely on cheap tricks, it creates dread. That's why people still talk about these missions decades later. Art style. Obviously, by modern standards, Thief looks old, very old. But honestly, the art direction aged way better than the graphics themselves. The game mixes medieval aesthetics with strange industrial technology in a way that feels incredibly unique. You've got castles, cathedrals, and sword guards, but also mechanical security systems, steam-powered machinery, and creepy robotic designs from the Hammerites. It creates this weird gothic steampunk world that feels unlike anything else. And because the graphics were limited, the developers leaned heavily into darkness and lighting, which accidentally made the atmosphere even stronger. Large areas are hidden in shadow, forcing your imagination to fill in the gaps. That's why the game still feels tense today. Sometimes older graphics actually help horror because your brain does part of the work. The city itself also feels believable, not in the giant open-world modern sense, but in the environmental storytelling sense. Every mansion feels lived in. Every guard station has routines. Every secret room tells a story. You can learn about characters just by snooping through their homes and reading notes. That level of detail made the world feel immersive long before immersive sim became a popular term. And honestly, Garrett himself had this dry, sarcastic personality that made him stand out immediately.
I do try to forget, but you keepers leave them everywhere for me.
Yes. You have more friends than you know.
Tell my friends that I don't need their secret book, or their glyph warnings, or their messengers. Tell them I'm through. Tell them it's over. Tell them Garrett is done.
Unlike typical edgy protagonists from the late 90s, Garrett is sarcastic, tired, and mostly just wants money. He's not trying to save the world. He's trying to survive it. That grounded personality makes him surprisingly memorable. Gameplay plus story. One reason Thief became so beloved is because the gameplay and story blend together naturally. The story follows Garrett, a master thief raised by a secretive group called the Keepers. After leaving them behind, he works independently, stealing from nobles and dangerous factions throughout the city. At first, things seem simple. Steal valuables. Avoid guards. Get rich. But slowly, Garrett gets dragged into a much larger conflict involving ancient prophecies, religious extremists, dark magic, and a terrifying villain known as Constantine. And without spoiling too much, the story eventually becomes very weird, in the best way possible. What makes the storytelling great is that the game rarely interrupts you with long cutscenes. Most of the world building happens during gameplay. You overhear conversations, read documents, explore hidden areas, and piece things together yourself. That creates immersion because you feel like you're discovering information naturally instead of being force-fed exposition. The missions themselves are also incredibly varied. One moment, you're robbing a mansion. The next, you're escaping undead creatures in abandoned catacombs. Then suddenly you're navigating impossible architecture in one of the strangest levels ever designed. And despite being a stealth game, Thief constantly changes the pacing to keep players uncomfortable. You never fully relax. Even experienced players still get nervous during certain missions. And honestly, few games manage tension this well. Even after more than 2 decades, Thief the Dark Project still feels special because it did things most games were afraid to do back then. It trusted players to think, explore, and pay attention instead of just running forward shooting everything. The game's focus on shadows, sound, and immersion helped shape modern stealth games like Dishonored, Splinter Cell, and even parts of BioShock. But what really keeps Thief alive is the atmosphere. Those quiet hallways, creepy missions, funny guard voice lines, and constant tension that still work today despite the old graphics. Few games manage to feel this immersive even now. And honestly, that's why so many people still consider Thief one of the greatest stealth games ever made. And honestly, that's why Thief the Dark Project still stands out even today. It wasn't just another action game, it created tension, atmosphere, and immersion in a way most modern games still struggle to match. But now, I want to hear from you guys. What's an old game that you think was way ahead of its time? Maybe a classic stealth game, horror game, or something most people forgot about completely. Drop your favorite retro games in the comments, and if there's one you want me to cover next, let me know because there are still so many legendary old-school games worth revisiting. And who knows, your comment might become the next video.